Taxation, other percentage tax, and excise tax. Part 1. What is the course of trade or business? The regular conduct or pursuit of a commercial or an economic activity, including transactions incidental thereto, by any person, regardless of whether or not the person engaged therein is a non-stock, non-profit organization or government entity. What is the consequence of being engaged in a course of trade or business? Such person, entity, organization, or associations engaged in the course of business shall be held liable to pay business tax. What are the different kinds of business tax? Other percentage tax, excise tax, and value-added tax. Business subject to other percentage tax. Persons exempt from VAT, domestic carriers, international carriers, franchise holders of water, gas, telephone, and radio companies, overseas communications, banks and non-bank financial intermediaries, finance companies, life insurance companies, agents of foreign insurance companies, amusement places, winnings from racehorse, sale of shares of stock, trade through the local stock exchange. How to compute for OPT, other percentage tax. Tax on persons exempt from VAT except sale by cooperative and livelihood projects where AGR do not exceed 250,000. Tax base is gross quarterly sales or receipt. Tax rate is 3%. Percentage tax on domestic carriers and keepers of garages, common carriers by land. Tax base is quarterly gross receipts and tax rate is 3%. The following shall be considered per unit of public utility vehicles minimum quarterly gross receipt. Jeepney for hire for Manila and other cities, 65,700, provincial 32,900, public utility bus not exceeding 30 passengers, 98,600 for Manila, 98,600 for provincial, exceeding 30 but not exceeding 50, 164,200 for Manila, 164,200 for provincial, exceeding 50, 197,100 for Manila and 197,100 for provincial. For taxis, 98,600 for Manila and other cities, 65,700 for provincial. Car for hire, 82,100 for Manila and other cities, 82,100 for provincial. Car for hire without chauffeur, 49,300 for Manila and 49,300 for provincial. NB exempt from OPT section 117 are two-wheel animal-driven vehicle and bankas. Domestic passenger OPT 117, cargo VAT if it's in land. For air, for passenger VAT and cargo subject to VAT. For sea, domestic subject to VAT, passenger subject to VAT, cargo subject to VAT. So for domestic, the only thing that's subject to other percentage tax is passenger of land. For international, exempt from passenger land and cargo land, and other percentage tax for international passenger of air and international passenger with passenger of sea. And for cargo, 0 VAT for air and sea, and nothing in land. It doesn't have land anyway. Alright, you understand, right? Other percentage tax on international carriers, 0 rated VAT, gross quarterly receipts times 3%. Tax on franchises on gas, water, utilities, gross receipts 200 multiplied by 2%. On radio, telephone, broadcasting corporation, gross receipts 3%. Tax on overseas dispatch messages or conversation originating from the Philippines, receipts from such gross quarterly services 10%. Exempt from Section 120 are diplomatic services, international organizations, news services, and government. 120 is taxes on overseas dispatch messages or conversation originating from the Philippines. 121, tax on banks and non-bank financial intermediaries, money and changer and pawn shop, gross receipts from the Philippines They don't have rate. I don't know. I'm not sure about the rate. On interest commissions and discount from lending activities, as well as income from financial leasing based on remaining maturities of the instrument. Maturity period is 2 years or less, 5%. Maturity period is more than 2 years but less than 5 years, 3%. Maturity period is more than 5 years, less than 7 years, 1%. Maturity period is more than 7 years, 0%. On dividends and equity shares in income of subsidiaries, 0%. On royalties, rentals, and property, real or personal profits from exchange and other items treated as gross income under Section 32 of the Tax Code, 5%. On the net trading gains on foreign currency, debt instrument, and other similar financial instrument, that is 5%. Tax on finance companies from lending, gross receipts, 5%, 3%, 1%, and 0%. I think it's the same there. Maturity period of 2 years. For other services, gross income, 5%. Tax on life insurance premium. Insurance premiums collected, 5%. Agents of foreign insurance companies, fire or marine or miscellaneous insurance agent, insurance premiums collected, 10%. Owners of property who obtain insurance directly with foreign companies on premiums paid, 5%. Amusement taxes, cockpits, gross receipts, 18%. Cabarets, night and day clubs, gross receipts, 18%. Boxing exhibition, gross receipts, 10%. Except if a world or oriental championship in any division is at stake, promoted by Filipino citizen or corporation at least 60% Filipino owned, and one of the contenders is a Filipino citizen. Professional basketball, gross receipts, 15%. High alai and racetracks, gross receipts, 30%. For the purpose of amusement tax, the term gross receipts embraces all the receipts of the proprietor, lessee, or operator of the amusement place. Said gross receipts also include income from television, radio, and motion picture rights, if any. Tax on winnings. Owners of winning race horses, 10% of the prices. Winners of prizes in double forecast, quinilla, or trifecta bet, 4% of the net of ticket cost. Person winning not in a double forecast, quinilla, and trifecta bet, 10% on the net of the ticket cost. 127A. Tax on sale, barter, exchange of shares of stocks listed in trade through local stock exchange other than sale by a dealer in securities, 0.5% of gross selling price or gross value in money of the shares of stocks sold, bartered, exchanged, or otherwise disposed. 127B. Tax on shares of stocks or exchange through initial public offering. Proportion of shares of stock sold, bartered, or exchanged from disposed of the outstanding shares of stocks after the listing in LSE. Up to 25%, 4% of gross sales price. Over 25% to 33 and 1/3%, 2% of GSP. Over 33 and 1/3%, 1% of GSP. Sale of shares of stocks listed in LSE, local stock exchange. Sale of shares of stocks not listed in LSE. Share of stock by dealer securities. Share of sales of stocks listed in LSE. Tax consequence, other percentage tax, and it's 1/2% of gross selling price. Sale of shares of stocks not listed in LSE, capital gains tax on the net capital gains not exceeding 100,000, 5% CGT, in excess of 100,000, 10% CGT. Sale of shares of stock by a dealer of securities, VAT, output 12% of SP, input 12% of purchase price, VAT payable. Alright, so share of sales of stocks listed in LSE is not subject to gross, but it's subject to percentage. Alright, who are subject to excise tax? This is already excise, right? Manufacturers, importers, distilled spirits, wines, fermented liquor, cigars, cigarettes, tobacco products, automobile, manufactured fuels and other oils, mineral products, non-essential goods. What is the nature of excise tax? Direct tax computed based on ad valorem or specific tax.